This is YouTube News. Not all stocks have joined in on the S&P 500 and #X27's move back to records. Nearly one quarter of its components are still at least 20% from 52-week highs, even as the underlying index has hit fresh all-time peaks. Stocks like Macy and #X27's, Activision, Nvidia and FedEx are performing even worse, tumbling 30% or more from 52-week highs. Chad Morganlander, portfolio manager at Washington Crossing Advisors, warns not to get lured in by what appears like a discount. End quote. I would advise investors not to dive into the bargain bin at this point in the market cycle with valuations where they are and with the S&P 500 hitting higher highs, end quote, Morganlander said Wednesday on CNBC and #X27's, end quote. Trading Nation. End quote. The S&P 500 has surged 25% off a late December bottom and scored its best start to a year since 1987. It now trades at nearly 17 times forward earnings, up from a 14 times multiple at the beginning of the year. End quote. What I would suggest investors do is broaden out their investment thematic. Look at the Dividend Aristocrats Index, for example, end quote, said Morganlander. End quote. That and #X27's trading at a steeper discount in relationship to the S&P 500. You get consistent cash flow companies in that index, companies that have very little debt and also there, and #X27's a chance for having income growth there, end quote. The S&P Dividend Aristocrat ETF is up 12% this year, underperforming the S&P 500 and #X27's 16% increase. The ETF and #X27's top components include high dividend payers such as 3M, Coca-Cola, Colgate-Palmolive, Dover and Procter & Gamble. End quote. We think overall, over the next 12 to 18 months those types of companies, that type of thematic will perform well in relationship to the broader market indices, end quote, said Morganlander. Some of the worst performers have held up in the face of sharp downturns though, according to Bill Baruch, president of Blue Line Futures. Macy and #X27's, for example, has stayed above a support line more than a decade old. End quote. If you look at a trend line going back to 2008, it and #X27's been constructive and #X27's held it so on a longer-term basis. There is value in the mid-$20s, end quote, Baruch said Wednesday on, end quote, Trading Nation, end quote, but ultimately if you are buying down here, your time frame has to be long-term because there is some very strong overhead resistance from the high of the year, end quote. I also want to focus on Nvidia, which is well off its highs and really hands, and #X27's participated in a broader rally, end quote, said Baruch. End quote. There is a gap from the November 15th earnings, and that right there is going to provide strong overhead resistance. It and #X27's had a good trend up until where it stalled near this gap, end quote. Instead, Baruch said it, and #X27's better to hedge your bets and spread risk across the semi space by looking to the SOXX Semiconductor ETF. He sees more upside after the ETF broke above $200 in early April. YouTube News.